Hey everybody, what's going on? This is Matt, and today I wanted to talk about conversation partners in language learning and how you can get the most out of it when using them. So, a conversation partner is basically someone that you're practicing with that helps you to improve your foreign language skills, right? And there's a lot of different options out there, right? You can opt to kind of have that pay someone to have that kind of regular conversation with you. There's also obviously free exchanges with people. But in the end of the day, you're practicing to speak in a foreign language. And I think there's a couple of things to consider, in this process. So number one, if you're not doing it already, it's a great way to kind of just improve in the language in general, right? So number one, you're using the language, which I think is fun for a lot of people. And it's definitely something that I think a lot of people want to end up doing. So definitely do that just from a fun aspect. But at the same time too, you're actually practicing speaking in a foreign language, and you're speaking in a real context where someone is responding back to you, and there's kind of this time component. So, it's definitely a different skill set than just basically talking on your own or just trying to say stuff out loud. The second thing too is that it actually helps your listening comprehension as well. So, you'd be surprised to think that actually it's a little bit different when you watch a movie in a foreign language and then you're trying to listen to what someone else is saying back to you in a conversation, right? A lot of times, you have to, react immediately and say something back. It could be a little bit more stressful and sometimes even more difficult or even easier than the movie. So it's a little bit different of an experience, and it's definitely something to, to improve on, just like any other skill. And I think the third thing too is it actually takes inventory on your skill level, right? It could be a very humbling experience, just kind of seeing, how good is my speaking in general, or do I really know these grammar concepts that well, or how many words do I know, or I'm having trouble hearing what this person is saying back to me. And so, there's just a lot of benefits from picking up a conversation partner. Now, I think that when you're doing this, there's a couple of things to consider when having a language conversation partner. So, number one, if you can, I would just say try to do it on a regular basis. And I know that some options are paid, and that's just not a reality for some people. But if you can afford it, right, try to have that conversation on a regular basis, right? Because that's going to help you to consistently improve in speaking, and also going to help develop a relationship with that person. If you're not using the, like a paid option, you can always obviously get a free exchange, help someone with, their English, for example, or whatever your native language is, in exchange for talking to them maybe 30 minutes here, and then, you talk 30 minutes in the language that they're learning. There's also just exchanges of people trying to learn languages together. There's just a ton of examples, right? But I think the thing is, try to be consistent when practicing speaking with someone, just for the obvious reasons of, improved progress, right, on a constant basis, but also you want to develop that relationship with that person. And that kind of goes into my second point, that if you can, I would suggest that you stick with that same person that you're speaking with, for the long run, right? Because I think that this does a couple of things. Like, number one, some people are definitely intimidated when they're first trying to speak in a foreign language. They're worried about making mistakes. And when you stick to that same person, you're going to get a lot more comfortable with them. It's going to be easier to have conversations. You're not going to be as worried about making mistakes. And that's just going to make, you just feeling better is going to make you have more progress in the end of the day. And I also think that, it could be tough to find the right person to talk with, right? Some people, they just want to do things a certain way, or they want to treat the conversation exchange like a lesson. Maybe that's what you want to do and get corrected all the time. Maybe you don't really want to be corrected all the time. I think it's important to find that person that they meet the style and what you're looking for, but also that someone you have a good rapport with, right? Because that's just going to make things a lot more enjoyable. You're going to feel more comfortable. You're going to make more progress, and that's key, right? So if you can, I would suggest try to stick to someone that or you want to just build a relationship with over the long run, because there's a lot of gains from that. Now, that being said, switching partners here and there can be useful, just to kind of get experience talking to different people, right? Talking to people that might speak a little bit quicker or have a different accent, or it might just be a different experience. So there is, a benefit to mixing and matching here and there just to kind of get that experience. But I do think that in a lot of ways, once you find that person that you have that good rapport and connection with, it's worth sticking with that person. And then, you know, like I said, if you're doing it consistently, that's going to be a huge gain for you in the end of the day. Now, a couple of other things to consider when using a conversation partner is number one, don't be afraid of making mistakes, right? Obviously, you know, you're trying to improve in the language, you're going to make mistakes. It's inevitable. There's really no way around it, no matter your skill level for the most part. So be okay with making mistakes, right? Don't try to be embarrassed and you know, be okay with that, right? I know it can be a little nerve-wracking at first, but be okay with making mistakes and taking in that process for what it is. So I think that's number one. The second thing too is that, you know, it really is probably worthwhile to have at least a foundation in the language before getting a conversation partner, right? You know, having that base understanding of a vocabulary, kind of just a base vocabulary, you know, library in your head, some grammar concepts, just some things like that, so that the process is enjoyable for you, and you know, it's not too much of a burden for the person that you're speaking with. Now, that being said, you know, don't you know, stay in that kind of preparing land for too long, because I think a lot of people would benefit from practicing and finally taking that leap into getting a conversation partner, but they're afraid they're not good enough, right? I think that really only applies if you're really at the bare bones basic level, right? But once you're kind of past that and you have some experience, it's worth getting into, right? Because you can get a lot of progress out of that, and it's a lot of fun, right? A lot of people want to actually practice speaking. So once you have that foundation, definitely go in and jump in. I think the second thing to think about, and you know, I'm kind of divided about it, is and I think it's worth mixing it up a little bit, is try to speak you know, very just almost quick, and not try to think about being 100% accurate sometimes. So like when you're trying to speak naturally in a foreign language, at least in my experience, I've found that a lot of times you'll enjoy the process a lot more when you're not overly concerned about you know, every single grammar rule, or maybe you mess up the word order or something like that. You'll find that you'll actually probably speak a lot better when you have that confidence and you're not just worried every second about, did I get the word order correct, or did I use the right word, did I pronounce this correctly? Just try to flow with it, and what you'll find over time is that, you know, just by being comfortable, you'll and as you learn more outside of the conversations, you know, you'll speak more accurately. You'll speak more, you know, naturally. You'll make a lot less mistakes versus if you're just hyper obsessed about getting the word order right, and then this just causes you to take 30 seconds to have one sentence in the foreign language. Now, that being said, I do think that sometimes it is worthwhile to try to be a little bit more accurate in your conversations, right? Just think, okay, I've been working on trying to improve my word order, you know, in the language. Let me try to be very observant and cognizant of that in my conversation, right? And I think at times like that, that can actually be very beneficial. But I would stray away from doing that all the time. I would just say it's worth maybe doing ever so often, or if you're really trying to focus on learning a tense better, that could be useful. But definitely mix it up, just because I found that when you're speaking a little bit more naturally, quickly, you're not worried about every grammar rule, you'll have a lot more fun, and you'll make a lot more progress under the hood than if you just freaked out and just try to observe every rule that was out there. So that's the thing I have to say on conversation partners. Let me know what you think, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.